I spent over 20 years teaching and working with high school band students. And if there's one thing that I learned, it's that you got to pick your battles. I can remember my interview for my last job teaching band, where the orchestra teacher asked me just such a question: what do you do if this person doesn't come? Well, we're going to talk about that next. Welcome to the Balance Blade, where strength, resilience, and leadership sharpen our edge. Together, we are forged in the blade, and we lead with edge. Today, we are talking about one of the most valuable lessons I learned in over 20 years as a high school band director: knowing when to pick your battles. So, set this stage right here. When you're in a leadership position, whether it's in the classroom, the workplace, or with a team, there's a temptation to address every challenge head on. Early in my career as a band director, I tried to fight every battle, and it was exhausting, and it didn't work. Strategically choosing which battles to fight isn't weakness, it's wisdom. I can remember text exchanges with parents about students missing practice due to volleyball games, and it gets to the point where it's almost as if those people are picking those battles with you out of spite. And so you have to learn. And one of the things that I learned was to work first and foremost, primarily with my stakeholders, with my students. Yes, the parents were ultimately in their charge, but it was the students that were going through the actions. And by doing that, I could show genuine interest and care. At first I felt like I needed to address every disruption, every phone out, every missed rehearsal. And I thought it was about control and setting a standard. If I let this one get away with it, that one's going to take advantage. But every student is different. If I let Johnny have his cell phone out for half an hour today, well, that's a different standard than maybe Susie has, who I don't let it have out at all. But Susie has no problem keeping that phone in her pocket. But Johnny was on his phone for 45 minutes yesterday. And today he promised only half an hour. Is that great? No, but it's improvement. And it's a step forward on Johnny's journey. One day a student missed a very important rehearsal. And I was ready to come down hard, but something told me to pause and check in first. And let me tell you what I learned. The student wasn't trying to challenge authority. They were struggling with a personal issue. The conversation taught me something profound: that sometimes what looks like defiance is actually a cry for help. So let's talk about how to pick those battles. I've got 4 steps for you. The first one: prioritize what matters most. In the case of my teaching students, it was those students. Not every issue is worth a battle. Save your energy for the things that matter, like group unity, respect, and commitment. If a student talked during rehearsal, sometimes I would let it go unless it became a disruption. But if they showed disrespect to a peer, right away, I would fight that battle. Number 2, you want to think long-term. Sometimes winning the immediate battle can hurt your long-term goal. Instant reactions might make you feel powerful in the moment, but they can damage trust and relationships. It's about preserving the culture you're trying to build. Number 3, and maybe one of the most important, check on their well-being first. And I learned this one from a number of folks, but if the first question you're asking when somebody is late to rehearsal is, "Are you okay?" that person's probably going to feel bad about being late. But if the first question you're asking is, "Why are you late?" well, then their defiance instinct is going to kick in. One of the most valuable questions I asked was, what's going on? A student once skipped an important performance, and I was furious, but when I asked why, it turned out they were dealing with something far more serious than I realized, something far more important. They made the decision to miss that performance, and it was the right decision. And that conversation really shaped my perspective. Number 4, find mutually beneficial solutions. One of the things that I would tell my students if they had to miss something is, if you tell me with weeks in advance, we're going to find a way to try to make it work. And if we can't, then we'll resolve that conflict the way that is in your best interest, even if that means you miss what we're doing with the band. But if you give me days or even hours, you're going to get grumpy, Mr. Sanchez, because we're not going to have a chance to make it work for both of us. That being said, we'll still try. But frame it as a shared problem. It is. If there's a conflict, it's an us problem. It's not a you problem. It's not a me problem, nor is it a standoff. And we're looking for a solution that strengthens the relationship while addressing the issue. Instead of enforcing a punishment, we worked out a way for the student to make up the missed opportunity and stay accountable. Building a culture of trust. By picking the right battles, I earned the trust of my students. When it was time to ask for their full commitment during those big moments, they showed up because they knew I had their backs. So here are the takeaways here. Don't sweat every small issue, but don't ignore the critical ones. And don't ignore the small issues either. You're going to hear them. Some of them are going to bother you, but don't sweat them all. Check in before you confront. Often the battle is not the one you're trying to fight. Leadership isn't about control. It's about creating a culture where people want to be their best. Not because they're afraid of losing, but because they believe in the mission. Now that's it for today. Keep sharpening your mind, body, and purpose. Remember, not every battle is worth fighting. Choose the ones that matter and build something greater. Together, we are forged in the blade, and we lead with edge. Until next time, stay sharp.